Welcome back to UKSG Summer 2018. We're up live now with Kwirk. It's a race between Paulister and CD Romatron's brought a very special thing along. He's brought a TAS of Kwirk along. Let's see how this goes.
So one thing I do want to get cleared up just before we start what a TAS is and why this exists. A TAS is a playback of button inputs. So I've been able to go through in an emulator and set what happens on every single frame. It allows me to manipulate RNG values. It allows me to get every trick and every bit of movement frame perfect. And it's not to be mistaken for what could feasibly be done by a human. This is simply meant to be a showcase showing what I've been able to do and comparing that to what runners are currently able to do. Right. So I'll be explaining a lot more about what we're doing when we go on, but I think we are just about ready to get started.
I will introduce myself. Hi, I'm Paulister. I'm the one that's going to be bad at this game. It's going to be great. Oh, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'll hit start when we do that, and then you start when it says like 8.7 or something.
Okay.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Alright. No, it's not. Timer hasn't started yet.
No, not just yet. So then I guess it's about 8.7. Go.
Alright, let's go. Oh boy.
So this is Kwirk. I'll let you focus on this. So Kwirk is this really nifty puzzle game where it's a lot of block puzzles, pushing things around and trying to navigate your way to the exit. You can get yourself stuck in a few levels, however there is a reset button in the event that happens. So what I have here is a tool-assisted speedrun, which I have authored over the course of the past few months, with the helps of various members of the TAS community, as well as various members from the Kwirk community, which have been very helpful for understanding this game. So the category we're doing is 99 rooms average difficulty. So there are a number of different room layouts in the game, and what ones appear is dependent on difficulty. So in average mode, there are 60 different rooms the game can choose from.
I believe that would be 50, actually.
No, it is 60.
Okay, good to know. Good to know I know nothing about Kwirk.
So not only are there 60 different room variations, there are also there's two versions of every single room. One that's flipped upside down from the other. So keeping track of what those are is a pain. The original way I went about going about this task was writing a Lewis script, which would check the memory addresses within the game to find out which room it was in, and essentially I wrote a small file telling it what inputs to press when it got to said room. The only problem is, the game doesn't have a distinction that I could find which tells you whether the room's flipped upside down or not. So essentially I had to write this test where if it was running against a wall for more than 5 seconds, it would reset and try the inverted one and see if that worked. Which was a rather slow process. So you'll notice that we're not doing the exact same rooms in the exact same order. So there is a RNG seed in Kwirk, and what I mean by that is in early retro games, and anything which isn't on particularly modern hardware, RNG or randomness in games, was decided by counters typically, something that would increment maybe once per frame. In this case, Kwirk has 60 different randomness values that it will cycle through once per second. So if you were to hit the button exactly 1 second apart from each other, you would get the exact same result. I found out through my research that there is exactly 60 different variations of the 99 rooms that you can get from a clean boot. One thing also to note is that although the time I'm getting here is the best time I found you can get from boot, there may be faster in-game times you can reach. So the game seems to have like a list of like rooms it can go through. So if you go and say do a 99 rooms run, and then start another 99 rooms run without hard resetting the console, you can get rooms that, well, paths that aren't one of those 60 that I found you can get from a boot. So there are a lot of variables you could be looking at if you're looking for in-game time. I've been mainly basing this off the TAS timing, which is from power on to the last relevant input.
Alright. Although, I do need to clear out that for the case of speedrunners in general, we're going to be using the in-game timer that's in the lower right corner.
Yeah, so the in-game timer is what the runners of this game typically use for measuring their runs. We don't, RTA is not used. We go by whatever the in-game time says.
And it's gonna be a very fast time, I'm assuming, for the TAS.
I hope you'll be somewhat pleasantly surprised. So there are a few minor optimizations in each room. For example, you'll see that there are some of these spinners which have the X-shaped ones, or like plus-shaped ones. So Kwirk, of course, moves at a fixed speed. However, whenever he's moving through those cross-shaped ones, he's moving at more spaces per second than he would be through regular movement. So anytime we're in a room where we need to walk past one of those plus-shaped spinners, we're going to be using as many movements through that as possible. Also, one thing we found is that from what I can tell, there is no deciding, there is no additional randomness after you've started your run. It's all set from the moment you hit start.
It's great. It's pretty cool. And we're not even a quarter of the way in, and from what I can tell, the TAS is already creaming me.
So it's a bit stacked. Well, of course the deck is fairly stacked. However, I have been rather impressed by the times that I've been seeing on many of the RTA leaderboards.
Yes.
Sorry, not the RTA leaderboards, but the speedrun.com leaderboards. Due to the fact that because of there being so many variations of the 99 route, some are of course worse than others. I've of course chosen the best one I could find. However, there are many routes in the 99 rooms. Even at TAS Perfect Playback, there is many times on the leaderboard which are beating these times. So there are actually some variations you can get, which if you're trying to beat PB below 19 minutes, you just can't get it on some setups, from what I can find. I'm also not saying this is absolutely perfect. So this task has been worked on in mostly kind of secret. People have known that it's happening, but no one's seen it just yet. So there is a chance that maybe when I was writing my scripts to figure out how to do each room, that perhaps one of them might be a few movements off perfect. However, I do have a spreadsheet that lists what rooms we went through. So as soon as this marathon's over and I get control of my laptop back, I will be uploading the script that runs the QuirkBot. I'll also be uploading all of the miscellaneous scripts I use for testing the game, a list of every single room in the game, images, and the spreadsheet outlining the 60 different variations you can get, what timings you need to set them all for, as well as what rooms you actually go through in terms of the game's ID, and of course providing the game's, for the images I'll give what ID is which room. So in the event that people do find which, if a room can be done faster, we can easily work out which path would end up being faster afterwards.
I see Mibs has been gagging to get something in, so I think we should probably let him speak.
Please. You are correct, Paul. We have Nubanage saying in chat, he bets €10 on a crash. Hopefully not, but if it does happen, we'll hold you to that.
Right.
I
We
think
also
it's far more likely that the emulator will crash than his game, so...
We also have a 100 bits donation from Lovebot saying Team Mike.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's so much of a team as, like, just kind of tanks rolling through at this point.
Yeah. Also, I just noticed you're using the what's it called? The
Okay, so I'm using the bird's eye. I'm using the diagonal view as opposed to the bird's eye view. Technically speaking, I could be using the bird's eye view. I just forgot to. So when we're choosing the RNG value, so all the RNG is based off timing, as I mentioned. It increments once per frame, and only takes, I believe, 3 frames to go and choose the downward view. And we were actually waiting for, I believe, around about 20 frames to hit start, so I could have easily have chosen the top-down view. There was no time loss or manipulation caused by choosing this view. It was just what I stuck with.
So basically, it was discovered that that view is actually slower to play through, the diagonal view, and that's why many people prefer to use the bird's eye view instead, because, well, we want to go fast.
Interesting.
So if you probably try to go with bird's eye view, you might actually land some even faster times than you might already have.
Interesting. I'll rerun this after swapping to that. Although I haven't noticed any changes like that. That's definitely interesting. So, of course, there's a lot of people to thank when it comes to working on something like this. This wasn't just me working on this. Let me just get
We have a whole list.
names of. So, first and foremost, the Kwirk community. You guys had already had so much stuff documented about this game. Not so much about the internal game's workings, but you guys had lists of rooms, you guys had some amazing runs I could watch and copy the strats from, and you guys were just super helpful, and I hope that we can collaborate on bringing this time down even further and seeing what's the fastest Kwirk possible. Let's see how fast we can make this tomato move. In terms of the TAS community, there is definitely a few people I need to thank. First and foremost, when we're getting started with this, the Discord user Bruno Valadas, who was the person who helped find the valid memory addresses. So where in the game's code it stores what room we're in, how far we are through Kwirk's walk cycle, etc., etc. Without that, I could have been searching for weeks to find that, and he does no idea how we found them this quickly. But he sent those to me, and that was really helpful. I want to thank Spike Stuff for putting up with my rubbish. He has been amazing with helping me solve the technical difficulties getting this Hawk to work, especially with a lot of the Game Boy stuff. And just being generally quite fun and helpful if I had any questions. Also, Duango AC and Master June, those guys, if you've seen GDQs with TASBot, those two guys and many others are behind some of the amazing tasks you see there. And that was kind of the inspiration for Atoll being interested in working on something like this. And of course, like, you know, I've watched lots of TASs over the years, so I can't go through literally every TAS I've ever seen. But if you've worked on a TAS, then you've been working on something great, and it's brought entertainment to people of that community, and probably many others as well. So thank you for your efforts.
It's great. The TAS community always gives us something to laugh about by just absolutely creaming every single game they put their hands on. It's hilarious. So yeah, I thank them as well for countless hours of entertainment. So yeah, as we can tell, first and foremost, I'm not getting exactly the best seed, although it's not too bad either. Meanwhile, of course, the TASBot, having already had the best seed pre-selected, he's kind of creaming me. He kind of has. Let me check if once I finish this room.
So this run is technically multi-purpose. I figured out part of the way through. So the game actually does incentivize you to solve the rooms quickly. There's a bonus score in the top right, which gives you points based on how fast you solve the room. So not only does this double as a endgame time, like fast to see what we can do this in, it also doubles as a high score showcase.
Yeah.
So we're going to be seeing just how high this number can go.
I'm really interested to see how this would go down because I think the criteria for the bonus points and seconds kind of differs. So you might pick one variation of rooms instead of another, because that might have a certain combination of rooms that might net you more points based on their solution.
Yeah. In almost every room we're getting either 2,000 or 1,800, unless the room is particularly slow.
Yeah.
Like this one there's a few more movements to it.
Yeah. But all in all, it's a very fun game, and I do recommend people to speedrun it if they want just a very cheeky speed game that they can busy themselves with for like a month, perhaps.
Yeah, Kwirk's a lot of fun, and it's quite simple to get into. It's just difficult to go fast, I find.
Yeah. Basically, you might have seen me huff and puff when I get this specific room. This is provably the longest room in the category, and it takes about 25 seconds just getting to the thing and solving it and going around to it. Have you gotten any of these in your permutation?
That's a good question. I can't remember. I probably should have made notes.
Yeah, it's
no, I don't think I ever found any permutations which didn't have that room. I'm not sure if we've gone past it already and I just wasn't paying attention.
well, there's still how many rooms?
There's still 18 rooms left.
You still have 18 rooms. It's everybody's game. I've seen a permutation which had the longest room in like the second to last spot. So yeah, it's still at any given point things can turn around. Well, not for this race. I'm losing this one.
Well, I still believe it.
I believe in me too. Maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, all in all though, I think in all seriousness, I'm doing relatively decently for the control scheme that I've been given. For I usually play this on an emulator with a keyboard and the arrow keys. But today I didn't have that luxury because both UKSG and VSG have a ban for the most part on emulator speedruns, unless it's a TAS showcase, in which case TAS is going to pass.
In that case, we don't have much of an option because
Yeah.
you can. There has been one showcase before in a marathon that I've seen of using a Game Boy or Game Boy Advanced game, which was Sonic Adventure, I believe. Sorry, Sonic Advance for the Game Boy Advance. The main issue that you encounter is that the controller ports on the GameCube aren't consistent. I believe it's along. I don't want to say too much because I'm not 100% on this, but I believe there's some sort of inconsistencies with the GameCube controller ports. So you actually need, because there's still all the Game Boy hardware in the Game Boy player, you need to actually go and connect directly to those buttons.
Yeah.
So it basically involves dismantling a Game Boy player. Funnily enough, all the software you can find online, it has been dubbed the Game Boy Player. If you'd like to look that up, it is a very fun project. And it's something I do want to look into once I can afford a second Game Boy player.
Very, very aptly named, I see. Meanwhile, I'm here on my last 25 rooms. Now, in terms of speedrunning, usually a middle to top tier runner can count a good run based on how much time they spend per 5 rooms. For example, every 5 rooms on average, they should be spending about 1 minute to be on a 20-minute pace. And with a PB of 1940 something, 1946 I believe, I am far, far away from achieving that.
Right, so we're just approaching the last 2 rooms of the game now.
Last 2 rooms for you, alright. Get ready on time for the TAS. I guess. Alright, and then it's just down to me to finish my run.
There we go, final room. very short room.
Oh, that's like super short, like 5
with
seconds.
a final time of 18:03.
Yes. GG. No, no, no. I won't take this long. Oh,
Yeah, once again, I do want to thank the people who are involved in this, literally, of helping me find memory addresses, helping me solve problems with BizHawk, helping me rework on the project after the BizHawk update, which we ended up setting the BIOS for. And those who helped indirectly, people who were just streaming whilst I was working on this. Automating Kwirk is really fun for the first 3 times you do it, and then the next 57 are a little boring. So thank you to people who stream. It was something great to watch whilst I was just waiting for most of these variations to play out. Even at 4 times speed, because I couldn't tell whether rooms were inverted or not, it would still take approximately 20 minutes per set of 99 rooms to work out what the final timing of the set would be. So as you can imagine, with 60 variations times 20 times the time to actually make plus the time to actually write the script, that was a lot of bit of time spent actually working on this.
Aye.
Although a lot of it was automated, so I could do some whilst I was working on the stuff, which is quite nice.
That is about 30 seconds wasted on my end.
I do look forward to getting all the code that runs this out there, getting all the information out there to the Kwirk runners, so they can help me and I can help them, and we can work out how to bring this game as low as we can.
Yeah, it's great. Meanwhile,
and plus the setup I have is actually fairly versatile. If we wanted to find out the easy times, we could find out easy times. If we wanted to find out hard times, we could find out hard times.
that could actually help us learn 99 rooms hard. Currently, there's only 1 time on the leaderboard, and that's like half an hour.
Alright.
So I'm sure once we can learn some of the strats, we can easily grind it down just a little bit more. Alright, so in the last 10 rooms now for me. It has been a relatively good seed given the control scheme that I am not used to. The fact that I'm finishing well below the estimate is actually quite a big achievement. Would you look at that? A run that went good. That I did good a run. Oh my god. I'm proud of me too. Thank you. Shh. We don't talk about ink. We don't talk about ink.
Sorry, to talk about the stuff that comes out.
Yeah, there we go.
Did that go under like 20 minutes? You only took 10 minutes.
Yeah, I sniped
Okay,
the
we'll
world.
just go with the fact 10 minutes. Adjusted for inflation.
Yeah. Yeah. I sniped the world record. No, I didn't.
Yeah, so if you are interested in TAS stuff, I am not particularly affiliated with TASvideos.org. However, I would recommend if you have an interest in TASing, in either watching them or helping work on them, you can find everything you need over at the website TASvideos.org. That should be the hub and your #1 starting place for looking for everything TAS related. Right. There's also an IRC server and a Discord server if you're interested in chatting along.
You weren't paid to say that, were you?
No, I was not paid to say that.
I'd love to.
This stream is now sponsored by TAS Videos. They keep TAS Videos, so you don't have
Final room. Oh, it's a good one. So we can just do this. One forward, push it down, and time on my end as well.
22, 23.
22-23, not bad at all. Given that I'm a little bit rusty on this game, the 22-minute time is pretty cool.
And a human. And a human.
Exactly, exactly. So, sub-19 win. Right. So, I guess that was Kwirk. Thank you very much for the TAS showcase. It was incredible.
Thank you guys for having me and being able to showcase this. It's been a lot
Right.
of fun to work on this over the last few months.
So, if my memory doesn't fail me, I think after Kwirk we have an interview of CD-ROMatron, don't we?
We do.
We actually do.
Thought I was done, but you know, apparently you guys just can't get rid of me.
Host, can you verify?
I can verify, yes.
Yes, I got it right once. Alright, so I guess we'll be passing it back to Tech and to the host for another quick break so that we can change positions, set up the next few runs, and that we can wrap this up. Okay?
Quite possibly the closest race we'll ever see at UKSG. Very well done by Paulister, and an amazing TAS showcase from CD-ROMatron and all the others who worked on it. Stick around, we've got some music, but coming up after that, we've got an interview with the CD-ROMatron himself.
right. We just had a very interesting TAS showcase slash race on Kwirk. A very lovely puzzle game that you can, of course, run on emulator and submit your times on the leaderboards. The first thing I would like to ask concerning this game was how long? How long did it take overall just to do this?
Okay, so I wasn't working on every single day, but like I said, so 60 different variations. Each one would take about 20 minutes to play out, even at 4 times speed, just because of the way the emulator and my script was set up. So whatever 20 times 60 is in minutes, plus the time investigating the game, finding out and writing the script, which actually would do this automation for me.
Right, just the scripting is 1,200 minutes, which should be
20 hours.
But
20 hours.
this was also not all, like, you know, I wouldn't need to be constantly babysitting it. I could, like, it was more often than not, I would start the automation, I would go make dinner, come back once dinner's finished, and then just be able to do that. So it wasn't all hands-on, but in terms of just the length of time that was needed to make this all work, that's about right. I said the time could probably go lower. There'd need to be a bit more investigation as to the coding of the game to find out what causes the rooms to appear. So it'd be great if I would be able to, like, write some software knowing how it chooses what rooms to make based on the RNG value, because that way we could have an automated system and we'd essentially be able to find out the best how long we would need to wait and how many rooms you'd need to do on on a single loading of the cartridge to be able to get the perfect one. But from a clean boot, this is the best I can find.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right. So now I'm assuming that with the help of the Kwirk community, you managed to find the most of the routes for most of the stages. When routing the rooms, did you look at some point at the inputs and thought, what if instead of going this way we went that way?
Yeah, there wasn't too many concerns to have. Essentially what I would do is, when I was going to the rooms, what I would have is the world records video on one screen. I would look as to find out what room ID that was. I would slow the VOD down to 25%, and what I would do is I'd just have, like, my hand over WASD and just pat out each input as it happened. I would watch it back afterwards, and then if there was any optimizations I could make, because there was like 1 or 2 movement execution errors in the world record video that I found. So it was just going along, fixing the obvious mistakes of, like, going back on themselves. And one instance where, like I mentioned during the run, whenever you reach the plus-shaped spinners, walking through those is much faster than regular movement. So just making sure I'm walking through those as much as possible, if that doesn't lose me any time.
All right. So I mean, was that any? How many times did that come into play?
Only once or twice.
Yeah, I would imagine, because trying to run back the room layouts myself.
There's a lot of rooms where there are plus spinners, but you walk through them anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time they're a bit out the way, so you don't actually save any time by walking over to them.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I was also trying to run back the room layouts in my head, and trying to see exactly how they all fit into the equation. So yeah, that is the Kwirk TAS. I think you covered most of my questions while I was playing Kwirk, because you were thinking of the people.
You need something to do for 20 minutes, so...
Yeah, basically. So I guess I'm just going to go a bit more broad and just talk about you in general, because let's face it, you are speedrunning a lot of games. You know a lot of games, and you have speedrun quite a lot of them.
Yeah, I draw the fine line between speedrunner and variety streamer a lot of the time. I don't know, my attention span is not fantastic when it comes to games. I will hop between multiple games in the same month. But at the same time, I also do like to take the game somewhat seriously. Even though I may go between a lot of games in a month, I will end up going back to the same games and making improvements over time.
I see.
And I find it's a really nice balance of, because I will just get really burned out if I sit down and grind the exact same game for like a month on end. I used to do that, and I don't think I'd ever go back to doing that. So I feel like it's nice to just get some fresh air once every now and then. and just go between, enjoy some games. I'm looking forward to, like, there's so many other games I'm looking forward to playing now that we're getting a lot of the summer marathons out of the way. I'm looking forward to playing some Simpsons Hit and Run. Looking forward to cleaning up some of the Crash Game Boy Advance games that I don't currently run. Some of the Spyro Game Boy Advance games I don't already run. Some of the PS1 titles. There's a lot of stuff I'm looking into once some of the marathon season boils over.
I see. Fair enough. My other question is, how long have you been speedrunning in general?
My start with speedrun, well, majorly with glitching and finishing games quickly, originates from a long time ago. It would have been not. Oh, are we? Are we okay? Fine. It wouldn't have been. It would have been pre-2010. My cousin was round visiting and showed me this video online on this it was pre-YouTube, I believe, of someone doing a BLJ in Mario 64.
Oh wow.
And that blew my mind as a kid, and like I always try to get MIPS through the door, and I never figured out how to get MIPS through the door. In terms of me actually starting speedrunning, my inspiration for that was a streamer who goes by Mr. Bean 35,000 VR. He is well known for his Crash 2 runs back in the day. He used to be a very high, he is still a very high skilled runner of the game, although he hasn't played it in some time. Although I guess he's a bit more known for the Mario Kart Wii modding scene. He is the guy in charge of, well, partially in charge of CTGP, the big online custom track servers, and making sure that's all maintained. And he's even streaming some current game modes that he's working on now, like Item Rain, which is really interesting. But back around about 5 or 6 years ago at this point, he uploaded a video to YouTube, which is a full post-commentated run with his brother Chatters of a Crash Bandicoot 2 for the PlayStation 1 100% speedrun. And that was when a lot of the tech was being found, when Walking Whilst Talking was found, when the neutral slide spin was found, when a lot of the modern strats that you used in that game are found. And I'm like, this looks fun, I want to play some Crash Bandicoot. So I looked on Speed Demos Archive, and I remembered, there's this game I loved as a kid, Entranced. I wonder if anyone's run this. And there was no time on Speed Demos Archive, and I'm like, okay, I guess no one's run this game. So I sat down and I played it a little bit, and then I found out a few years later that there'd actually been a little bit of a community behind it. That the Sprash and Ape Escape folk had been sharing a spreadsheet. This was way before the days of speedrun.com.
Yeah.
So you just need to fill out this Google Doc and send it along, and one day your name would be appended to the spreadsheet. Back in those days, that game was much less optimized, and there's so much more fun we can do with the game now. But yeah, I would say speedrunning actively about 5 and a bit years at this point.
Wow, that is a lot of time.
In terms of interacting with the community and streaming my runs, I've only been streaming since summer last year, and interacting with the community round about a year and a half or so.
I see. Fair enough. So, now, I was gonna point at a future run, but there really isn't any future run besides Halo 3.
Which you should all be very excited for.
Yes.
Halo is one of my favorite franchises of all time. It's like, aside from my speed games, I've spent the most time in Halo Reach as probably any game I've ever played. And I'm very excited to see Halo 3.
Right, so I'm gonna point to a few of the runs that you did in this marathon in the past. So, starting off with Sonic R, I know you've said it at least twice before, but just for the record, how was our singing?
Terrible.
Sorry.
I didn't hear much about Block Theater, but probably worse. I think I woke up when you guys were singing Wonderwall.
Yes.
Which is never a good sentence to be saying.
You you avoided the worst parts.
Apparently.
Good.
Apparently.
It's probably for the better.
So yeah, Sonic R was fun. That game is actually really fun. Almost no one plays it on PS2 because the loads are just terrible. But I find it just is a nice little in-between for the levels, and it gives some time to relax, some time for your hands to rest up, and the PlayStation controller is just really comfy.
I see. Right. So, I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna jump around a little bit between all the different runs you've done. We're gonna do 2003 Crash 2 Advance. Besides routing, how do you route this game? I'd like to ask, how do you find these games?
So a lot of it is found through. There's a few YouTubers who will showcase various bootleg titles, and generally you look for ones which are also like you can find ones which are part of the series of games you play anyway. That's particularly common with the retro games. There's one YouTuber who was a particular inspiration for me, which was Yuri of Wind. He was the guy who made a video on Donkey Kong 5. He made a video on 2003 Crash 2 Advance. And generally I see these and I'm like, this looks terrible. Can I order a reproduction cart of this? More often than not, games like these just get ignored, mostly because they're bad, because they are bad. There's a lot of stuff you need to put up with. Dropped inputs, you develop a sixth sense for those.
Oh.
But you get some comedy. I don't know. For me, part of the enjoyment of speedrunning is finding something which people won't have seen before, showing them, and they're like, okay, not only am I seeing this, what is this? But you put time into this? And I live for that feeling.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I believe it was SBCZ's sister, Steph, that walked in exactly as we were starting to sing Can You Feel the Sunshine?
Yes.
And I believe, not a word of a lie, I think one of her first remarks was, let me see if I can remember this. How many people dislike you? I think something along those lines.
I only have one person banned in my Twitch chat, so...
Ah, well then. So besides that, let me see if there's anything else I can touch upon. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Duel Academy. Now, I kind of understand what makes that sort of a speed game, but I can't exactly phrase it out myself. Can you help me out with that?
Okay, so... to give a bit of context, I used to play some competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Approximately 4 years ago until I gave up with the game. However, that was mostly just giving up with the modern mechanics. I still loved the game. So, being able to have an excuse to go back and play retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Is pretty fun. In terms of how it's a speedrun, so, of course, there's a lot of routing involved. Not only do you want to make sure you're getting the fastest way through the game, in which case we found you battle Cyrus 10 times, do an exam, battle Chaz 10 times, get an event, battle Chaz once, and that gets you all the way to Obelisk Blue really quickly. There is routing involved in terms of what deck you want to build. The game has over I believe it's 1,200 cards. So that's a lot of options for what kind of deck you want to build. So you need to consider your budget, how much money you have in the game at that point, what your starting cards are, and there's a lot of variables to take into account in terms of what your deck is. So there's a lot of routing involved there. Not only do you want to build a good deck, you want to build a consistent deck. So sure, your deck might win in 3 turns, but if it only does that 1 in 20 duels, it's rubbish. So you're trying to find this balance of good cards and consistent cards. So that goes into the actual routing of the game. In terms of the execution, it's a lot of... I like to think of it kind of like speed chess, where sure, you could take a lot of time and think through these moves and probably make a lot of optimal plays, but you're really running against the clock here. So you need to be just constantly keeping in mind, what cards do I have in hand? What cards are left in my deck? What cards do I need? What is on the field? What's on my opponent's field? What could my opponent have set? What could be in my opponent's deck? What's in my opponent's hand? You need to have a lot of the cards memorized, the situations memorized, what you've already encountered in the duel memorized, and it's a lot of execution.
Right. So, my last question for Yu-Gi-Oh! Have you ever been Exodied?
I've never been Exodied in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, solely because no one actually uses the Exodia cards, but I have pulled off Exodia in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It's very slow and it's not worth it.
Oh, I see.
Although there is a fun little animation that plays, where Exodia does just completely obliterate the opponent.
Amazing. So, yeah, I believe we're almost there. Just one final question from me. Sub 4 Spyro Orange, when?
When I get good at Crash Fusion.
Great. Fantastic. So,
I think that can be right.
so just any last remarks you might want to make? Just now.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been fun. Looking forward to the next one. hopefully you can bring forward more interesting games, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get to see a large variety in games that I get to watch as well. So
Fantastic.
thank you guys for organizing this.
All right, and thank you for coming along to show us all of your runs. Now, we are fast approaching the end of UKSG Summer 2018. It's been a very fun time, a very hectic time, and what better way to cap it off than the Halo 3 run by the Mebulous with the special incentive of the I would have been your daddy skull, which modifies the dialogue in a very funny way. I do believe there will be a lot of quiet time so that we can see all the entertaining and amusing dialogue.
What? Sorry, I'm not
We
listening.
apologize to those wearing headphones.
But yeah, we hope you stick around for that. It's going to be a very entertaining run. I can't wait to see it. So I'm just going to pass it off to Tech again for a quick break, and we'll be back shortly. Again, if you have any more donations for Young Minds, we do appreciate every single one of them, so keep them coming. Now, we'll be back in about 10 minutes with Halo 3. See you then.